How you doing, everybody? Nick DiVirgilio here, and my very special guest in studio today is Mr. Billy Cobham.
Pleased to meet you, sir.
Welcome to Sweetwater, sir.
Yeah.
It's your first time here, right?
Yes, it is. First time in Fort Wayne, as a matter of fact.
And what do you think of our fair facility?
Incredible. Incredible. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out where am I. It's a maze, an amazing maze right now.
It's a very big place, and we're just really excited to have you here.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a really long and storied career, and I have a question. I'm sure you've given a ton of interviews in your life about where you've come from and how you started, but you started at a young age, very young. In fact, somewhere around 4 years old, you started playing drums.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What drew you to the instrument? I know you came from a musical family, but what was the calling that drums brought to you?
Born into a family where they made drums in Colón, in Panama. Timbales, steel pan, congas. So it was hard to avoid it.
Right.
And right now, that little area, Gatun, is now below, maybe 150 feet below water, below the Gatun Lake, which is now the holding pen for many of the canal certified ships that go through.
Okay.
And so that said, my folks did not have a lot of work. My dad was a scientist and mathematician, so we ended up coming to New York and immigrating there, coming directly to Harlem, and the rest was history. We started working, he started working. He was a piano player. His older brother, Edwin, showed him how to play because he used to be the church pianist and organist in our town. And my father had this gift of retention, that he used in math. He could do it musically in the same way. And the rest was history. He would just play and make anybody sound good, as and wherever he could, to earn some extra money for the families. Because in those days, you were earning, if you earned $45 a week, it was a lot of money for us.
Sure.
Yeah.
You went to a music and arts high school in New York.
Sure.
So obviously learned more there. But then you went and you I guess you got drafted into the Army in the late 60s, right? That's what, did I read that correctly?
I saw the big red Swedish barn coming in the snow.
Okay.
Called draft.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I knew where most of the guys in my little community was going, which was the 9th Cavalry. And that was a foot soldier.
Sure.
And I thought, let me just try one thing, just to see. It can't hurt. And I went, I said, I'd like to audition for the bands. And they said, we have enough people for the bands. I said, okay, that's all right. I said, but what kind of band? I said, well, I made out the application and said, marching band. I was in marching bands, specialized in drum and bugle corps. And a lot of the guys in the Army Center, they knew Blessed Sacrament, Hawthorne Caballeros, the Chicago Cavaliers, and I was in that kind of area where we were competing against a lot of these different people, even though the Caballeros were senior corps.
Okay.
And they said, well, wait a minute. And they conferred, and they came back and said, take the test. And I got through. I was supposed to go to United States Army Field Band in Washington, but they had a backlog. So I ended up teaching at the United States Naval School of Music in Scope, which is down in Virginia.
Okay.
And made some friends. One was Grover Washington, one was Cecil Bridgewater, great trumpet player. I'm trying to think of who else was. Roger Glenn, whose father was Tyree Glenn, who played trombone with Louis Armstrong. And next thing you know, we were all assigned to different bands. Roger and Grover went to the 19th Army Band, and I went to a very unique band called the 132nd or 178th Army Band in Brooklyn Army Terminal. And all we had to do was play for guys coming in on ships, coming off, leaving ships to go, probably because we were on the Atlantic side, by ship to Germany. I don't know if they ever went through the canal. It seemed to be crazy. But anyway, they did that, ships coming back in, and ceremonies between our base and Governor's Island, which was the island right off next to the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
That was the Third Army. But we had this specialty band, and in that band was a lot of guys that moonlighted like you wouldn't believe, because we were making $168 a month, and had to figure out a way to survive.
Do you think? Yeah.
So I was in Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus. I did anything I possibly could to make it, and learned and became connected to a lot of people like Grady Tate, great drummer. Played with Billy Taylor, did a lot of Swerve recordings with Jimmy Smith, the organist, and Lalo Schifrin, and all of that. And he was one of my mentors, and he got me into the recording studio because I kept being available whenever and however I could be to work. And when I came out of the service, it was easy for me to make a transition based on recommendations from Grady, the late Roland Hanna, Ron Carter, of course, Jimmy Owens, Larry Willis, a lot of musicians like this. And Thad Jones, of course, and subbing for Mel Lewis from time to time. Everybody got to know me and trusted me. And next thing you know, I was in the studio, first working with Horace Silver, for about 10 months, and that was real school. I mean, you talk about go to school, you get your parchment and all of this, you put it up on the wall, and then you've got real school. Now you've got to put all of that information that you read and you studied and proved to everybody that you retained, and make that music. It's a whole nother thing.
Sure.
So for me, I had a chance to apply these ideas in real time. I didn't get a chance to go to school in terms of the institution with the walls. I got more into immediate playing, taking on different situations on and off stage, because there's a lot to be said for how you perform on the bandstand and where all of that information is coming from that kind of spurs you on.
Sure.
It's the yin and the yang of life, you know, and every note represents that. And that's why I've always said that I think music is the only sincere language, means of communication. You can't lie when you play. Either you can play or you can't. And there's a reason why you can do those things. And all of that comes out in the notes, and can be interpreted in many different ways, not only by those who listen to you, but by you yourself, because you know what you're doing.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's one thing has led to the next, and here I am.
That's some great information, really cool stuff. And this may sound weird, you're known as just this iconic jazz fusion, such powerful playing in a lot of rock influences and stuff, some of the stuff you did in the 70s. Where did you start to meld the two things together? Because your playing is very powerful. Stuff you did with Mahavishnu and your Spectrum and all your solo stuff. Where did those two kind of things start to come together?
It came together with a band called the Jazz Samaritans, which was my high school band back in the, let's say about 1962, 63. Before I went into service, I was in a band with a keyboardist by the name of George Cables, and he was at the Performing Arts down in Midtown. Trombone player named Artie Simmons, who's a great trombone player even then. His uncle was a wonderful gentleman who helped me just to get into High School of Music and Art with a little recommendation. His name is Roy Haynes. And let's see, a friend, Dr. Leroy Barton, who's down in D.C. at the School of Music there. Bernard Scavella, who became one of the big pharmacists in Chicago, played alto saxophone and tenor. We had this band. Clint Houston was an artist, a painter, but he played great bass and ended up working with, until he passed away at a far too early age, with Stan Getz. He was a great, great bass player. And so that said, we used to be, we wanted to consider ourselves the second coming of the Jazz Crusaders.
Okay.
And those guys, Winton and all, they never took they took no prisoners. When they played, they were rocking. But they were playing straight ahead, as a Texas style straight ahead jazz. It was us, and we used them as a model. And in that, I had to lay it down a lot. Drum corps helped me a lot.
Sure.
The whole idea of being in sync with everybody and setting down time. The funny part about it is that Clint played like Chuck Israels. He was all over the bass. And Chuck Israels, you may or may not know, is a great bass player that played with Bill Evans, and for a long time. And he established sort of a very free style of playing, that when he and Pete LaRocca, who was a great, great drummer, would play together, though, they'd meld together as one, and it would sound very, very special. And Bill would just float right through all of that stuff, made that trio very, very special. Sure. Especially when you listen to that and Ray Brown and OP and Thigpen, which was like, BAP, it's in your face, you can't get away from it, yet very musical, very powerful. These are things that would happen, and I feel that I would listen to this, and these ideas would stay with me. But I was growing, sure, and I needed to the aggressiveness. I mean, I'd rather be told, "Man, you're playing too hard. You're pushing too hard," rather than, "I need more."
Right.
I can always take something away, and that's what I learned to do. Especially when I was told on a few occasions, "Listen, if I ever hire you again, this is what I'd like you to do."
Nice.
I go, yeah. There's been days like this, Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you could talk about this for a long time, but what was it like playing with Miles Davis and doing that period of your career?
It was the time to shut up and play.
Okay.
And not do anything until you were told that what you were doing was wrong.
Okay. And
I'm blessed. He never told me that. If anything, the only time he ever commented on my playing was when we had a rehearsal, and he asked me he said, "That's a great groove. Play that tomorrow." And we'll do. I could not remember what I played at all. And so, of course, I was like this when I walked in, and we said everything, and we were playing. He said, "Play what you told me. I told you what to play yesterday. Play that." And play that for me, he said. And I went, and I started playing something, because I said, I got to play something. I don't know what. He said, "You didn't play that yesterday, but I like that."
There you go. Well, at least you got through it okay. That's good.
And I went.
Awesome. Let's talk about gear for 1 second, because you played Tama back in the day. And you've had electronic gear involved in your drums for a long time, but you played a really kind of early version of some kind of electronic kit that Tama gave you, I read, way back when.
Synergy.
Now, what was that like, playing electronic drums in the early 70s?
Awful. Pew, pew, pew.
So it was only that kind of sounds and stuff, yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
You hit the bass drum and went, pew. Snare drum, pew. And you went, oh no, there's got to be a better way, Okay, throw some gray noise in, and it sounded like, pew. So, okay, that's it, stay away.
Right, so the electronic gear today is better then. Of course.
Oh my. Well, look, you're more inventive.
Sure.
Better things to work. I mean, the components are much far better to work with than that.
Now, would you say that same about acoustic drums as well? The gear you had back then. What do you feel about the history of acoustic drums? What do you think?
Unless you want it, you will not get it now. You have to really want to invest. It's like I have drums that I can say are from the past that are my Stradivariuses.
Okay.
And any drum set I have, those are the drum sets that I would never, ever, ever get rid of because I just wanted to throw it away.
Right.
But that's because I found my tie-in. When I came back to Tama, it was with the idea that I would play the best set they had that they could make. When I was with Yamaha, they gave me 2 of the best sets they've ever made. They're called Phoenix.
Right.
I still have them today, and I swear by them. The same with the Babingas, because I know what they do, and I know I've learned how to set them up for me, only for me, to play what I need depending on the presentation.
Sure.
But I'm a collector of drums. I have Cocobolo, drums made of Cocobolo. I have drums made of Mbuya wood, because that's what I do.
Right.
You know, it's like being a railroad engineer,
right.
and having a whole bunch of HO trains all over the house, you know, that run throughout the house.
Right.
You become, if you are really about what you do, to a greater or lesser degree, and it's different in grades and degrees for different people, you become that. You live that every day. It doesn't go away at 5 minutes past 5 in the afternoon.
Right.
And start again at 8:59. No. It's all the time. How can I do this better? Or what do we need? Or what are the requirements for tomorrow's gig? What is the room going to be like? What heads do I need? What do I have to work with? And finding some compromise to play the best as a player, the best that you can. First and foremost, selfishly for me. Because if I play well, I'm guaranteed that everybody else is going to like what I'm doing.
Sure.
But first, I have to be comfortable with me. So therefore, I'm always looking, and it's kind of an obsession, yeah. But one I feel is very healthy,
okay.
Whereas, and so to ask me about the equipment today is kind of unfair, because what I would take, most people can't afford. My ideas, I invest in. For instance, I found a drum that I play now, and I love so much. It's made of a wood called mesquite, and mesquite is a very, very, very hard wood to negotiate in making of a drum. It's almost petrified.
Okay.
It's so. You can get mesquite from the Pampas in Argentina. You can get mesquite right up here in the deserts. But try to break it unless you have proper tool. It's going to be very difficult. But yet I have a friend who found a way and made a drum for me that I swear by. And it's a wonderful sounding drum for specific things.
Okay.
Not power, not just being loud, but the sensitivity at double pianissimo is with the right tensioning. Again, so you need to know what you're looking for.
Sure.
You don't just go and say, oh man, it's mesquite, oh wow. Mm-mm. Then there's another drum made from an apple tree, completely different personality.
Sure.
And it's wonderful sounding, but you have to have the right heads on it, of course, as you would the mesquite, to really show the character of the drum, and of course to match it up with whatever the music is you're playing.
Sure. That brings me to a question about your setup. I'm sure you change it up from gig to gig and depending on what you're doing, but you've always, from what I've seen, you've had big drum sets,
Mm-hmm.
but you've had set them up not just 10, 12, 14, 16. You varied the size of the toms around. You got all kinds of stuff going on. So where did that start in your career, and why did you go with like having small tom, big tom, small tom, and that kind of thing around your kit?
What brings you to the name? I don't know if you guys are familiar with the name Hibbs, Joe Hibbs.
I know Joe. Wow, I knew Joe Hibbs. He was a great friend of mine. He treated me very well.
He was my
years.
tech.
Oh, okay.
Okay, when I was with Tama.
Okay.
And one day we were going to Explore Music, and Explore Music was either in St. Louis or in Kansas City. And we were late. Weather, blah, blah, blah. Couldn't get the plane, was late. And so we panicked and we come in because we had a curfew and we had to get this done before. So we had to start on time in order to fulfill the mandate of the contract. So we get inside and we open up everything that they had from Tama, and we're putting everything together. And I'm setting up the stands. Hibbs says, "Where do you want me to put on the drum, the toms?" He says to me, "Billy, where do you want me to put this drum?" And I don't look at him. I'm assuming he has the 12.
Right.
And so I say, "Over there." And I'm still working. And when I'm finished, I turn around and he has this 15 sitting in the left-hand side of my kit by my ride cymbal. I go, "Ah!" You know, and then I realized, hey, not a bad talking point. I wonder what would happen if I put that 15, because the next drum after that was a 13. Mm-hmm. He had it all turned, and I said, give me the 14. Take the 14 away. And I took the 14 where the 13 should have been. I put over here, and I put it there. And I put the 13 there. So it's like 15, 13, 14 there, 12. And then, dum, 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 dum. I went, let's see what would happen if we did this. And next thing you know, I had, okay, the 16 was okay, the 18 said that's enough. Then sometimes I would throw in a 20 on this side.
Okay.
So then it got into the idea of what tonality did I really want? So the objective was, I play the drum I want to play. I don't play the drum that's been set up by custom to play.
Right.
Now, the problem was to get whoever was the engineer, sound-wise, to understand where I was going. Because now it's like, but you have the drums in the wrong place. I said, no, I don't. They're right for me. You know who's playing these drums? Me. So therefore, this is the sound I want. Which got those guys to start to think about, okay, let's tune the low drums first and go to the high drums, or go from here and tune the panning spectrum as opposed to per drum, per sound in a degrading low sequence of frequencies. So you have now two options where you only had one before. And for me, it was about just choosing what I wanted to have heard and then designing how everyone heard it, including myself, across the tonal spectrum.
That's fantastic. Now, along with that, have you always been an open-handed player your whole life? Did you kind of start out that way, or did you kind of develop that over time?
Most of my life, when I was about, I don't know, I'm going to give you a number like 8 or so thereabouts. My dad said, I'm going to take you to he didn't say there was going to be Specs Powell, right. But he took me to Specs Powell, whom I met later on in life, and didn't remember me, of course, by then. But Specs played, I think, he played with Maestro Bernstein in West Side Story in the Pit. And I don't know how Dad met him. I don't know. Maybe through Dexter or Dizzy or somebody. And so I went for a lesson just to see what, as far as it's, why you play like this and everybody else plays the other way? What's wrong with you? And I don't know. You know. And went. He said, Specs, here's my son, you know, what's, is he all right doing this? Specs said, so play for me. So first I played like this. And Specs said, no. You have to play this way. I said, why? He said, because that's how you play. I said, why? My father said, because that's how you play. And I said, okay. So I started to play that way, and he said, "Oh, you can play that way too." I said, "Yeah." Yeah. He said, "Well, so why don't you play that way?" I said, "I don't know," because then, now I'm afraid to say really what's on my mind.
All right.
So I went through the lesson. He was charging more than we could afford, or my dad could afford, and so it sort of became an afterthought because, "Oh, you're doing okay by yourself. You don't need for me to spend any more money." And his way of getting out of paying for it, that's okay. I don't need this anyway. It didn't hit me as being someplace I didn't want to go to. I felt like I didn't want to go study as if I had to go to the dentist. It was like, come on. I was having fun with this. I'm still young, and I felt that then. So the next thing you know, something said, well, I wonder what would happen if I did this. By then, my brother was born. He's about 1 year old. And I said, oh, I'll give Wayne. And I always saw Wayne holding his shakers and stuff. And he's like, he was all like this, So I said, hey, Wayne, I gave him these drumsticks. He went, I said, good, give them to me. You just served. The thing was, is that it was natural.
Okay.
He didn't do this.
Right.
Or
Right.
He just did this. And it was before he hurt himself, I took the drumsticks away. And I started to play this way. But I thought, okay, let's take that one step. And this is like 10 years old, 9 years old. I'm starting to thinking, if I were to take this hi-hat, which is here, which I always wanted there. And funny thing is that when I got my first drum set, which then I was a teenager,
right.
I set him up and I didn't even know how no one told me how to set him up.
Right.
No one knew how to set him up. Yet I felt like I knew from I was born how to set up a drum. It just seemed logical to me. Right. Just like I met a young person a few days ago who designed out of paper. I forgot the art of making all these
origami or whatever.
Origami,
yeah.
An amazing what looked I believe was like an F-35 jet out of one piece of paper. It's 13 years old, 14 years old, and he just put it together. It flew fine. I said, how you do that? I don't know.
Right.
It was the same for me.
Just did it, yeah.
And it was like I envisioned it, where everything went. It all made a lot of sense, to the point where I was saying, well, yeah, but if I have the hi-hat here, why would I want to have a ride cymbal over here when I could take it and I could put it over here and put the ride cymbal over here, have the hi-hat here, lower it down, and then have my crashes here, and I don't have to cross it. I'm going to do this. And everybody's saying, it's wrong. But I never had any problems losing sticks or banging one thing against the other. And it felt very comfortable for me. So all these things just sort of had a flow to them,
Sure.
When the time was right, like with Hibbs. Put the drum over there and didn't even watch. All of a sudden, a new world opened. And it's all about, you play what you envision in your mind first anyway.
Sure.
And then it comes out. So now you have to be selective. And if you have the right sounds in your mind, how you want to present this, what drum you want to play at that time based on the environment, which would be the music you're playing, that's what you should do.
That's great information. Thanks for sharing that. I got a question for you. You've been playing drums a long time. How have you kept up your body, your physicality of you as a person, so you could still play at this age you are and keep going? Because you play still a lot of gigs every year. It seems like you're working all the time. Mm-hmm. You haven't really slowed down at all.
No.
And drumming is a physical thing. It beats up some guys and gals more than others. So how did you maintain your physicality throughout your career, so at this point in your life you could still play as hard as you ever have?
The best lesson I learned from Vic Firth was to not let the drums play me, play the drums.
Okay.
Yeah, right. You go, what do you mean by that? He never held the sticks too hard. He always did this. Right. He said, Bill, I can warm up. he'd take, the season would be over for the symphony, okay? And he played with that symphony 50 years.
Right.
He could play a role anytime, just by knowing how to warm up the tendons here. All of the control was always here. It was the weight of the stick that he was controlling up and down, and sometimes circular motions, things like this. Very subtle, but extremely musical. Just on one timpani, I mean, you couldn't tell which stick was playing. It all sounded boo. A roll was boo, not boo. Boo. You look at him and say, "You see, like this, right? You know, I'm supposed to do this." And he would. It just came from years and years of experimentation and testing. He'd sit down, go to a mallet instrument, said, "Yeah, you play the part like this," and he didn't play mallets most of the time. Somebody else did that. He said, "I have no time for this." And you go, okay, this is all within his wheelhouse. He knows how to make these things happen. The main thing for me was to find a point where I could feel comfortable with any drumsticks in my hands. So if the idea of playing and multitasking from the right side or from the left side, one of the things that happened with that changing of the drums and toms in front was that my main drum, more than ever before, even though it was the center drum, the main drum, snare drum, became the springboard for everything I did left and right. I could go like so. So I sat with my posture, very, very important, as if this is my table to have dinner or breakfast. I get my cereal, I share, I always like so. I put the stick on the head, I draw the sound out, I never play into the drum. Okay, so therefore there's no such thing as carpal tunnel syndromes for me. It doesn't exist because I don't play that hard. I'm always drawing, I'm saying, come on. When I hit a cymbal, it's come on, I need your sound now. So when I'm playing, it's like, do. When I play so. So everything is loose, and all of my power is centered here. So I'm not doing this because I don't really have to. Unless I cannot hear,
But then you hit it.
then all of a sudden, naturally, I'm playing much harder than I have to. And now I'm in trouble because I know that this is going to hurt me physically. And I'm not gaining anything by it because I am not enjoying my performance.
Okay.
Why do that?
That was very cool. I've always wondered how you keep going. Okay, let's get up to today. You got a lot of great things going on. You were telling me that you have a book going out, and you're gigging here. You're gigging down in Indianapolis right now with your band. So let's hear about what's going on with you today.
Well, as of tomorrow, I will go to Milwaukee and we'll play a concert there. God knows where. I can't remember. And then we come back and we play in Evanston, probably at Space. And then we come to the Jazz Kitchen in Indianapolis for a couple of days. All right. But along with all of this being on tour with Scott Tibbs and the band is very unique. The Crosswinds project has a bassoonist in the band.
Nice.
And he's, instead of playing tenor sax, he's playing bassoon. Paul Hansen. He used to be with Cirque du Soleil, Bella Fleck. And when he went with Cirque du Soleil, they just took him for like a few years, and he disappeared. I heard about him, but I
did Cirque for 5 years before this gig.
Couldn't find the guy because he was in Japan. I just found out. You know, I went, okay, now I get it. And so I have the opportunity, the honor of playing with him. He's a wonderful, wonderful musician. And of course, Tim Landers, bassist, was with me back in the Gil Evans days, back at the beginning of the 80s. And my first band, Glass Menagerie, until around 84. And then he went out to LA and became A-list bass player and never to be heard from again until about a year or two ago. I saw him walk into Los Angeles College of Music, and I realized him. No, it was before that. A place called The Mint in LA.
Oh yeah, no, The Mint. Yeah.
And he walked in and went, "Hey, where you been?" You know, and he started to tell me a little bit about it. I said, "What? John Tesh? What? All of this kind of stuff?" Really? I said, "Man, once you leave and you go to L.A., if it's New York and L.A. is like oil and water. You just no chance. Everybody just goes woo." So I didn't know, and one thing led to the other, and we met at Roland to work on a project that, again, as I said, I'm a collector of drums, so and odd bits, and so I ended up purchasing a bunch of drums that look like bubbles. They're called molecules.
Okay.
And we had a ball just to hear what they would sound like with pickups on them, you know. And that's where the whole Roland thing started to work for me, because I use them with hybrid pickups in my recordings.
Okay.
And so I've got two really funny sounds. I mean, together. Once they're tuned right, oh boy, I have a ball with it. You know, it's a very special thing. But what got me over was with Tim. He played bass on this with Scott Tibbs and myself. And whom am I missing? Farid Haq. He used to play guitar with Joe Zawinul for a very long time. And it's the mad scientist of all these guys are what professor this or professor that, you know. But he is the ultimate professor.
Right.
Well, what happens if we did this? Stop talking. You know, he'll play 1 million notes per minute, and all of it makes sense. That's the Crosswinds project. Out of this, so far, we've developed a strong musical rapport. Hopefully, I've designed it so that we're going to play the same music, like the same 2 shows for the rest of the year.
Okay.
Just to really lock in, then record, and see how that goes. Because it's I think they make a really special statement, without taking away from the Spectrum 40 project, which was a great band. This is a whole nother thing, and not greater, just different. And I'm taking my time to make sure that it's done right, you know, that we stay on track to do what I'd like them to do. While that's going on, I've been working on jazz orchestral projects with my music.
Okay.
So I've worked with the Frankfurt Radio Big Band, and I have an album out called Broad Horizons with them that was done in 2014 or thereabouts, 2015. And I'm looking to follow up now with another project with a big band out of London. And we're working at Ronnie Scott's. We worked there last year, in July, and we'll do it again this coming June. And what makes it so special is that the last time I was there, I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine who is a writer, a book writer, and he asked me, Brian Gruber is his name, he said, you know, you should put down some of the stories that what you talk about with drumming, and also different things that happened, like the situation with Harry Belafonte, no, not Harry Belafonte, but Hugh Masekela, where I was in the Army, and I was asked to come down and play in Hugh's band when he had Grazing in the Grass, and he was touring back in 67, I think, or so. And those guys called me and they said, yeah, come and rehearse, come and see if he likes you, to have the gig. I'm moonlighting, so it doesn't make things, and I'm thinking, okay, it's just another band. I don't know Hugh Masekela, so okay, what is South Africa, Miriam Makeba, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it sounds very historical. What do I know? I come in, band sounds great, burning. Next thing I know, I go to Hugh and I say, because inexperience, I've been playing a lot of weddings and stuff like this, and I walk up to him and I said, yeah, man, this band's really, really great. Listen, if you guys are looking for work, I know some weddings that I can get you a gig. You get some contracts. You can work some things on the weekends. I can't work in the week because I'm at the Army. Right. And he says, wait. I said, you're where and you're doing what? And he said, okay, look, let's step into my office for a minute. He says, you're fired. And I'm going, what? Why? I said, you know, what happened? He says, you still don't understand what's going on in this business. I mean, Hugh Masekela had a #1 hit record. Oh. And I'm telling him that he should play. You know, we have there's a wedding in the Jewish community. There's a wedding in the Polish community, and we need to learn these tunes. And everybody fell down laughing when so that's in my book. Things like this,
yeah,
you know. And
life
I said,
stories, yeah.
Learning experiences and things like this. Hey, I'm now a big shot. You know, all of, less than 24 years old. Oh no, that's not true. A little bit more than that, but still less than 24 in my head. And so there's this book, and it's called 6 Nights at Ronnie Scott's, and it represents a lot of these ideas, these thoughts that came through, plus the opinions of other artists whom I've been associated with, my colleagues, Bill Bruford, peers, I should say, Randy Brecker,
sure,
Jan Hammer, Ron, people like this.
Okay.
So there's that, and that should be available by this coming June.
Okay.
So what have I missed? I don't know, probably a lot more. Oh, then there's the Art of the Rhythm Section retreat, which would run from July 23rd. That's the first day of activity for those who take part, to July 27th, which is the Saturday, I think, where we still have a bridging the gap between the electronic and the acoustic. That's me and Scott, and we do a special thing with Roland electronic gear. But during that whole week, it's all about the interaction, the social interaction of the rhythm section, and in dealing with the supporting wind players this year. You know, the next year could be vocalists.
Okay.
You know, but this time it's wind players. So we'll have Paul's. Couple of students from Paul's his classes come and play, and that way, and maybe 1 or 2 other people, if they make it. It's a small group of people, no more than 50 people at the max, because we can't really handle more. Ron Carter and Kenny Barron will be there to give a lecture with me on how rhythm sections worked in the 60s, where we worked, what we played, how we developed a repertoire that we could call on at any time. Because between the 3 of us, one of the part of the act that we do is that we walk on the bandstand, and Ron says, "Okay, what do you want to play?" Or Kenny says, "I don't know, what do you want to play?" And it's just 3 spotlights, and okay, start something, man. And Kenny will start to play something. It could be anything, Monk, anybody, and from there we go, Lerner and Lowe, Monk, whatever, and whatever comes out. But it's based on the fact that we've studied over. When you played in New York back in those days, you played for 6 weeks in the club. That maybe there were more people on the bandstand than was in the club, but it was for 6 weeks. So you did the half note, you did the 5 spot. You did the cookery. You did Cotton Club. You did the Vanguard. You did the Village Gate, and it just went. Oh, the Hickory House. The Red Parrot. You just did, and then this was after 52nd Street pretty much closed down. But on 52nd Street, between First Avenue and about 11th Avenue, you had about 30 different clubs.
Wow.
And so people were working all the time, and that was just clubs. Then you had RKO and all these other big theaters where they were playing 10 shows a day, with big band and all of that. It was ridiculous. That's why New York became a mecca. But out of that came some people where you learned the ABCs of kind of a real book in your head, and it's still there. And so when I work with McCoy Tyner, which has only been twice in my life, once in 1976 or 77 at Fantasy, when we made a record called Fly with the Wind. And then at the turn of the century here, I worked with him and Stanley Clarke. Had to be around 2008 or thereabouts. And he would just call off tunes, and I had to know what was happening.
Right.
And that's what you don't do now.
Right.
So all of these things happened at the Art of the Rhythm Section retreat.
Very cool. That's nice. It's so amazing. You have so many great things going on. So I congratulate you for that.
Well, thank you. And the point is also, I'd like to stand as an example of someone who's trying to promote the idea that you should never have to wait for anybody else to put the food on the table for yourself and your family. You got a brain, use it.
Sure.
You know, try to find a way to make it work. If there are going to be mistakes made by somebody else representing you, it's still your fault. So you might as well make the mistakes yourself.
Sure.
And be done already. You know?
That's good advice.
Right. Well, I said it.
Well, Billy, thank you so much for coming to Sweetwater today.
Pleasure.
Thanks for taking the time to talk and give us all this great information and tell the stories. I really appreciate it. And we'd love to have you back. Come play, come to the studio. There's so many great things we'd love to have you here.
Sure, no problem. Love
It'd be
to.
awesome. Thanks so much, Billy.
Pleasure.
All right. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody.